Yeah, so we hung on to that car all day, and even with that, we finished like just inside the time cut. And man, like we were holding on to that van for like 6 hours. My hand hurt so bad, my shoulder hurt. Like, oh man, at one point I was just holding on to the hinges on the rear door, like those little hinges that stick out. That's all I had. So I'm trying to handle the bike like that. So anyway, that just sucked. That day sucked. And you know what the worst part was? Like, this was a big race. Like, it drew big fans. Entire towns would come out when you came through, and which was cool. I mean, I always raced better when there were crowds. Always, like, you can never, there's some stimulation, there's some excitement, adrenaline that you get from a crowd that theoretically you should be able to like reproduce within yourself when you don't have the crowd. Like, it should be something, from a sports psychology standpoint, it should be something you can control. But man, I could never race as good as I raced when it was like a bigger race, when there were people watching, when it meant something. So anyway, the worst part, we're coming through town and everybody is gone. Like, the whole city is packed up and left, and we're coming through, and like the only people left are the people at the at the finish line writing down our numbers. And I remember, and then, okay, so here's a little rule for if you're just starting to race in Europe and whatnot. And this might seem pretty obvious, but I was pretty new to it, and we were in what's called the gruppetto. Laughing group, they say. I mean, we weren't even in a gruppetto, but let's call it a gruppetto. The pack that's kind of off the back and not going to be a factor in the race anymore. So we were off the back, and the rule is you never contest the finish. You never sprint from the gruppetto. So I kind of knew that, but I still kind of accelerated a little bit because I knew my dad and my family back home and my wife would be, I wasn't married. I knew my dad and my friends would be following the results on cyclingnews.com, so I wanted to finish a few places up. But anyway, pretty much I hung on for most of the days as long as I could. I usually ended up falling behind in and finishing in a back group, but it was good. I mean, I didn't feel like I was in over my head. It was just the first experience, and I actually thought it went pretty well. I finished the race. I'd never done an 8-day stage race before. The average speed of the winner of the race after 8 days and like 12 categorized climbs was 27.5 miles an hour. Average speed, including climbs, including like the easy days. So anyway, it's a fast race. Those guys go very, very fast.